Welcome to CBS Sports HQ, presented by Geico. I'm Chris Hassel. We were looking at having the top two teams in Pete Prisco's power rankings play each other this week. It was the Bucs on top. The Bills were right behind them. Both of them lost, and they have fallen out of the top five. But we will still have a matchup between number one and number two as we look at Pete Prisco's NFL Power Rankings presented by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico. Look who's number one and number two. It's the Seahawks and the Rams on a collision course to meet this week for first place in the NFC West and maybe even the number one seed in the NFC. The Eagles have a game against the Lions. If the Eagles lose that, the winner of that Seahawks-Rams game would have the one seed at this time next week. So they're the best of the best right now. Patriots, they were the subject of Pete's deep dive article at CBSSports.com at number 3, followed by the Eagles and the Colts, who are still in that one seed position in the AFC. Let's get to it. Joined by Pete Prisco and Leger Douzable. And Pete, did you set it up that way? You had the two teams that were going to be going head-to-head this week at 1 and 2 last week, and they're replaced by the two teams that are also playing this week, the Seahawks and Rams.
I called Sean McDermott and Todd Bowles and said, if you lose, I'm going to put those two up.
A handshake deal.
Yeah, right. They did a nice job for
So
me.
what do you think of these two teams at the top? How do they separate themselves in this game?
Well, I think when you look at these two teams, they're both pretty similar. They're getting big plays in the passing game, and they can rush the passer. I mean, this is a passer and pass rusher league, and they both can do it. And we saw what Seattle's defense did to Arizona last week. Turned Jacoby Brissett back into Jacoby Brissett, and he turned the ball over for big plays with DeMarcus Lawrence had 2 touchdowns. So I think the biggest difference if this was, like I said earlier, if this is December, I think you'd probably look at it and say, okay, Stafford's going to outplay Sam Darnold. But it's November, and I think for that reason, I think I'm going to take.
You still feel like that shoe's going to drop?
Well, I think Seattle's the better team right now. Just right now, and for a couple of reasons. I think defensively, when they get their secondary, they're getting their secondary back. They're better in the secondary. Sure. They can rush the passer as well.
They're going up against the hottest quarterback in the NFL.
Yes, right now.
That defense is legit, though. I think Seattle's really legit on defense, and Mike McDonald does a great job of scheming things up.
To your point, this is why I had them as a top 5 defense. Our biggest question mark was this guy right here. Sam Darnold in the offense with Clinton Kubiak coming in. Also, remember that offensive line really struggled last year, and they've refortified that offensive line. They're actually getting really good play from their tackles who they drafted a few years ago. And to Pete's point, Mike McDonald's like a mad scientist, what he does on defense, right? He moves the defensive line around, right? He has Tank Lawrence, he'll put him inside. He'll move Leonard Williams on the outside. He brings in Nick Emanwari and puts him at linebacker because he essentially is a cyborg that can play linebacker and can play safety, can play the slot.
Kyle Hamilton.
He's literally Kyle Hamilton, but maybe even a little bit bigger than Kyle Hamilton. And you talked about it, they still don't even have Julian Love back, who is one of the more consistent safeties in all of football. So we still haven't seen the best of their defense, which is kind of scary because you saw what they did versus the Arizona Cardinals, right? 14 points on defense, 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Pure dominance. That game was never in balance. The offense has been the surprise for this team. Jackson Smith and Jigba should be in the MVP category because teams know he's getting the ball, Pete, and they can't do nothing about it. He still takes everybody up top, but I can't wait to see this matchup, like you said. To me, it's more going to be on the inventiveness of Sean McVay versus the inventiveness of Mike McDonald with that defense from the Seattle Seahawks. That is going to be the main matchup.
You saw those old numbers, by the way. Back in the day, they used to throw the ball down the field, Norm Van Brocklin and gang. That's what's great about watching. These are two guys that aren't afraid to throw the football down the field in a league where nobody wants to throw it down the field anymore.
And the first of 2 matchups over the next month or so, the next 5 weeks in the NFL. The first meeting in Los Angeles this week. The Rams are a slight 2.5-point favorite in that game. All right, jumping down to the next tier. And it's a team that's falling down, the Buffalo Bills, who had a major setback this past week. And Pete, you wrote in the article, if they can't stop the run, they can't win the Super Bowl. How do they fix that?
Well, you hopefully get some guys back.
That's the issue.
That's part of the problem. And they got blocked the other day. And you put on that tape, and there were guys getting blocked. And they got to get off blocks. The linebackers got to get off blocks. But, you know, when you lose guys like Ed Oliver in the middle of that defense, that hurts. You know, Okunjobi's back. Daquan Jones, but Okunjobi's back, and so he's going to help them. Once
Quite
he gets
going down with
I don't
that.
think Okunjobi's quite back into football shape yet. He will get there. They'll be better against the run going forward. You also have to look at the way they're playing offense. And I'm as critical as Buffalo as any team in this league when it comes to the style of offense. I think all these teams are scared. They're all playing. Every one of them is playing scared across the board. Look at the Packers on Monday night. You look at all these, even the Eagles. They're playing not to lose rather than to win. I know you're playing good defenses, but it's okay, even if you're off coverage. It's okay to throw on first down. It's okay. It's okay to dictate tempo. Think the Bills. Look, Cook's great. Yeah. But when you're not consistently getting big plays in the passing game, you're not going to win in this league. Yeah. And I think they need to get back to that. And I think they will. By the way, their schedule softens out a little bit here.
Does it?
Well, this is a tough game, but you're at home. Yeah, look at it.
Hey, Jack, pull up the schedule real quick. That's my concern for the Buffalo Bills.
Two really tough games.
It begins with the Bucs. Then they have at Texans, at Steelers.
That's what I'm saying. Texans, C.J. Stroud could be back, and you know that defense is going to give them an issue.
Yeah, but
right? They have the Bucs.
Jacksonville had a
maybe Burrow's back.
They have the Eagles, and then I said Joe Burrow could be back week 14, so that could be a shootout game.
I think,
and then they have to go to the Patriots.
I think they win this week, and you probably do too at home.
Oh yeah, they're going to be motivated after they lost.
I think they'll win all those games up until, and New England will be tough.
That Texans game is going to be tough. Remember, that's where they struggled last year.
Yeah, you're back on that bandwagon, huh? Quick.
I was never off. I knew the defense was good. The issue was the offense, but they've been able to squeak out games. And we talked about this, Pete. If the Texans could start squeaking out games, we knew with their defense, their schedule is hard, but it does lighten down the back half of this season, and they were able to pull off a win with Davis Mills at quarterback. I'm glad Pete brought up the first point because it's written right here for me. Issue stopping the run. And like you said, if you can't stop the run, you have no chance because you open up the playbook to any offensive scheme. That was the best we've seen Miami Dolphins run the football. Devon Achane, we finally saw Mike McDaniel get back into his run playing bag, right? People forget when he was at San Fran, he was the run game coordinator. And it seems like he went back into that bag as far as the eye candy, just to buy the linebackers, to have some misdirection with the run game with Devon Achane. They struggled at times in man coverage. We saw Jalen Waddle get down the field on Maxwell Harrison, but that happens because you're able to run the ball the way they were able to run. Another point we brought up before with the Buffalo Bills, nobody can separate in man coverage. It is awful watching the tape. Their receivers, and again, Josh Allen elevated these receivers last year. None of them have taken a step. And Dalton Kincaid got hurt, which is his number one guy.
And Palmer.
But I don't even know if he's a good separator. He's a good down-the-field threat, but they don't really have somebody like Khalil Shakir was their guy. And if you're Joe Brady, you got to start trusting him a little bit more because he was number 2 in the NFL last year in yards after catch behind Jamar Chase. For some odd reason, they're not seeking him out like they did last year.
Well, they're running the football. Your whole strategy, get the ball to Cook.
Well, my thing is they need to start the game running the ball.
But here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. If you aren't good stopping the run, what's the best way to get a team from running? Is you score.
Yeah, you got to keep them off on the sideline.
No, but not off on the sideline. You go score point. If you're down 14-0, you're going to be more apt to throw it than run it against the Buffalo Bills. So they got to get back to playing free and loose again.
But also, a thing that plagued them and it reared its ugly head, the games they've lost to turnovers. That's what hurt them.
They're not intercepted, they're fumbling.
But you got to think even the Patriots
Cook
game.
fumbled.
The Patriots game, Josh Allen had a fumble and then he threw an interception that game.
But he fumbled. Cook fumbled. He fumbled.
Yeah, exactly.
They're fumbles. You got to take care. You got to take care of the football.
Yeah. It's kind of the same complaint that you have with the next team we're going to talk about, down to the third tier, and it's a team that before the season you had the Bills playing in the Super Bowl, the Green Bay Packers. I think this is the first time that you have them outside your top 10, and they're really struggling offensively.
And if you're the Packers and you come out, you play the Eagles, you hold the Eagles to 10 points, you should, for the rest of the year, you should be doing cartwheels. Oh my God, we have them to 10 points. But you're worried about your offense now. And why are they worried about their offense? Because they don't know what they're doing. And I'm going to be critical of that offense. Look, Josh Jacobs is a good running back. He's not ripping off long runs. He's just not. That's not who he is. So you're a grinded offense. And you keep putting pressure. And I know the receivers are hurt. And I know guys got hurt. I know you lost Tucker Kraft. But you keep putting the quarterback in that situation behind an offensive line. You go run, go make a play on third down. You can't play that way in this league. It's time for them to let him play free and loose again. You know, everybody who's critical of Jordan Love from last night, 2 weeks ago when they played at Pittsburgh on that game against the Steelers, everybody's like, oh my God, Jordan Love, look how great he is. Why? Because he was throwing it around.
Especially in the fourth quarter, yeah.
They got to allow him to throw the football around. If they don't, I don't care what you do, you're not winning in that division, you're not winning in the NFC.
So there's a couple of things, right? This team was the number 1 seed going into this weekend. They're all the way at 7 now, and that's why they've fallen on your list. There's a lot to decipher what Pete was talking about. There's a couple of things. Pete, we had this discussion last year. What's their identity? I think that's the issue with them again this year. And last year it was Jordan Love got hurt, so they turned to Josh Jacobs, and he became the identity of the team. This year, the receivers have gotten hurt. Tucker Kraft, right? Matthew Golden is out. Jalen Reed. And we
Dobbs
saw
went out of the
exactly.
game.
So we saw receiver 5, 6, and 7 in, and you could tell that they're just not on the same page with Jordan Love. Like, Bo Milton is a guy that was playing receiver and cornerback, and he had 2 pivotal mistakes. He had a drop pass on 4th down, and then they had the illegal formation because he was on the line of scrimmage when he should have been off of it, and negates a big pass to Christian Watson down the field. Pete, you know I've been critical of Jordan Love. This right now isn't on him. You brought up a really good point about the play calling. You have to adjust to the personnel you have now. I think Matt LaFleur has struggled doing that because he's so used to having all the receivers and having 5 or 6 guys he can put in and trust. You don't have that right now. So you have to figure out what to do with this offense based off the personnel you have. And it's not going to get any easier because they just lost their center who was an all-pro in Elton Jenkins. So they have to figure it out quick or things can turn left for the Packers, a team that everybody had going to the playoffs when the season started.
But I think Micah Parsons said it best. Don't worry. Look at the way we played defense tonight. And he's right. They're going to keep it. They just got to let their quarterback play quarterback. You can't – look, you're not winning a Super Bowl handing and turning it to Josh Jacobs all those times.
I will say this. He has to be better in scenarios right outside the red zone, right in the first half. You can't take a sack on 2nd and long. And then I don't know what he was doing right before half.
I don't know what the hell that was.
Like, you cannot turn the football over when you have 3 in the bag. Like, those are the plays where people scratch their head and say, Jordan Love has all this talent. You cannot make those plays and put your team behind the 8 ball.
But having said all that, on 4th and 1, I'm going to go back to LaFleur again. And I think, why not call timeout there, get the right play in, go get your first down?
The Eagles knew it was coming.
Right. Of course they did. They were calling it out.
Correct.
Got the Giants this week in a game. The Packers are favored by a touchdown. They are now behind the Chicago Bears in the division.
Your
Bears.
Bears.
Yeah, the Bears tied for first in the NFC North with the Detroit Lions, Pete, up to 13.
Ben Johnson's done a heck of a job with that team. And he's more than anything, he's done a heck of a job with the quarterback. He's getting better. And everything is slowing down for Caleb Williams. He still does some of those things where he leaves and retreats 40 yards outside the pocket. I mean, outside the confines of the pocket. But he's still making. You saw the play he made to win the game. I mean, he got outside, ran down the sideline. I mean, it was a big-time play. I'm impressed with where they are right now. I worry about their defense. The Giants are moving on them the other day, and so that's a concern. They got to be better. They got to get guys back. They have a lot of injuries on that side of the ball, but they have made big strides offensively.
I think the most important thing when you look at the Bears, Hass and Pete, is like they're finding ways to win. And last year they found new inventive ways to lose games. And I think that's the biggest thing when you talk about culture change, right? A lot of these games they would have lost the Giants game. They would have lost the Raiders game earlier this year. They would have lost the Cincinnati Bengals game last year. But that's been Johnson coming in, bringing in that mindset that we're never out of it. We're not going to blink. Now, the schedule does get significantly harder. And you brought up another really good point about Caleb Williams. I love that he isn't reverting back to USC, Caleb. Now, when they need him to, like in the 4th quarter, when they need him to play loose, as people would say, we need you to play loose, he was able to do that. He got outside the pocket, found their tight end down the field. You talked about it, that game to take the lead. He got outside the pocket at an 18-yard scamper to get into the end zone. But you're not seeing a lot of that in the 1st and 2nd quarter. He's going through his progressions. Now, his receivers are letting him down with some drop passes earlier in that game, but I love that he's not trying to be Superman until the Bears need him to be Superman, and that's growth, and that's what you love to see if you're Ben Johnson.
You mentioned those games that they would have lost. Rip off those teams again. Go ahead.
It was the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Giants.
And so that's why people aren't believing just yet in the Chicago Bears.
Why you still have them behind a team they're ahead of in the standings like the Green Bay Packers. Not quite into the top 10 yet, but at number 13, highest they've been probably in several years in Pete Prisco's power rankings. Much more from Pete every Sunday night, 8:20 Eastern Time. If you want a great recap of everything that happened earlier on Sunday in the early and late afternoon window, check out Pete, Damian Harris, Rand Carthon, hosted by Haley Sutton on CBS Sports HQ. It's the middle tiers of Pete Prisco's power rankings. Pete?
I don't know, GM.
I don't know about those Vikings, those Niners, those Steelers, those Texans, those Jags. All of those teams in the running, and many of them in the playoff race right now. I mean, like the Niners, the Steelers, the Jags, those teams would be in if everything ended right now. But major question marks, especially for the Jags. They're sitting there with the last wild card spot, but they just blew a 19-point 4th quarter lead to the Texans, who are above them now in the power rankings. And Pete, the defense, remember how many turnovers they were forcing earlier on this year? They're not forcing turnovers.
Do you remember what we said about that, though? Sometimes when you get turnovers, it masks your problems.
It's not sustainable.
And it masks their problems. They have issues, big-time issues on defense. They have a first overall pick, one of the highest-paid defensive ends. The defensive tackles are both making money because Devon Hamilton makes money, and they can't rush the passer. They don't get after the quarterback.
Yeah.
And so if they blitz, they leave two safeties, one who blows more assignments than anybody in Antonio Johnson, and Andrew Wingard, who can't cover anybody because he's too slow. He's too slow.
Issues.
And so what do you do? How do you compensate? But I thought it was interesting this week, Liam Cohen kind of called out the defense. And he said, one way or the other, we're going to get to the quarterback, and we're going to influence the quarterback, which means they're either going to be blitzing more or they're going to make some changes. And I don't know what kind of changes they can make because they don't have a lot of bodies sitting around that can rush the passer. That's the biggest issue. Now, the offense didn't do much either because the offensive line was awful. Did you see Daniil Hunter? You talk about making guys spinning tops. He made them all spinning tops. and Trevor Lawrence is not playing well. I think it's a combination of all of it. If you said, you said it. Right now, if the playoffs started, they'd be in the playoffs. They might be one of the worst playoff teams we've seen in a long time if they win in as is right now. That's how bad they're playing.
Yeah, you talked about Trevor Lawrence. That interception right before half where you potentially could get points and they even extend the league. Like, those are the plays that make you scratch your head. Like, you can't have those plays. And Pete hit it right on the head, right? They have a lot invested in that D-line. They just haven't been consistent like they were earlier in the year. Now, Trayvon Walker was coming back from an injury, and it seems like he just hasn't picked up where he left off before the injury. And you talked about it. Not having Travis Hunter, I think, is really hurting him, too, because he's a guy that could man up on the outside. Now, you talk about Liam Cohen maybe changing up the philosophy and maybe blitzing a little bit more. That means you leave your corners on island. That means you leave your safeties on island. That's not going to bode well for how this defense has played this year. So
might as well go down swinging, though.
I guess right now. The thing is, you just allowed the Houston Texans to get back in this race, which is going to make it tough for a lot of teams going down the stretch.
Houston only a game out of that last wild card spot and just ahead of them in the power rankings. Just behind the Jags, the Carolina Panthers, who, up and down. And
he raves about them physically every week.
Well, they win in.
Why can't
actually, the defense didn't play that bad except for J.C. Horn.
Why can't they win then?
They're just not consistent.
Why did you say it? Say it.
They're not consistent.
No,
you're going to say Bryce Young.
That's exactly why they can't win. He's not very good.
They scored 7 points against the Saints.
Yeah, that was bad. And he had that bad interception.
And he threw for 124 yards on 17 completions. Yeah. That's a dinking and dunking. That's all he's doing. He hasn't, he's only thrown for over 200 yards one time this year.
But the thing is, I think Dave Canales just has him more of a point guard. He's not really trying to put the ball down the field. If you look at their concepts, there's not a lot going down the field.
Is he protecting him?
Maybe, or I just think he wants to have the run game be the identity of the team, and then he wants Bryce to essentially be a point guard. To your point, I think they need to open it up. Like you said, if you're going to go down swinging.
I'm okay with that.
What is crazy to me is that they had a real opportunity to cut that division within one game. Because Tampa keeps losing. And they may lose again this week versus the Bills. Yeah. And they're not taking advantage of it. Like, you have a big win versus the Green Bay Packers. You play the Saints with a rookie quarterback, and you have that rookie quarterback look like he's the next great quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees reincarnated, right? But it's a little bit opposite because he actually pushed the ball down the field. And that's not a dig at Brees. He's still one of the most surgical quarterbacks in the NFL. But I talked about it. J.C. Horn fell down twice and gave up 2 explosive plays. Like, the defense actually played well. They had 2 mishaps, and that's why they lost this game, because the offense couldn't get their act together. So, you know how I've raved about the Panthers saying, like, I'm not sure if they're a playoff team, but they're going to be a tough out week in and week out. They had a real chance to make some noise this week and silence all the doubters, and they didn't do it.
No, they brought more doubts on themselves
Pretty much.
And on their quarterback.
Quarterback, for sure. Yeah.
All right. That finishes up this segment of Pete Prisco's Power Rankings. We will dive deeper to the bottom of the rankings in just a minute. NFL Today Plus, Kaya Long and company, Amanda Guerra hosting. I don't know if Matt Ryan will be there this week, though, because NFL Today is on the road for the Denver KC game.
Ooh.
Come with us as we dive to the bottom of Pete Prisco's Power Rankings this week. Down bad and dumpster fire. Hey, a lot of those down bad teams, like the Jets, got surprising wins this week.
We're not in a dumpster fire no more.
Yeah,
they moved
Jets
out of
won. Saints won.
That's not a good thing.
Dolphins
That's
won.
not a good thing.
No, you want to be in a dumpster fire. Get better draft picks.
We have so much draft capital, I don't think it matters.
Let's focus in on the Cincinnati Bengals at 27. Joe Burrow returning to practice, maybe a Thanksgiving return.
Why?
But the question is, The offense is putting up 40 points a game, basically. and they're still
Exactly.
losing.
But not just that. Why? Other than the fact that he wants to play football, if they don't win any more games, let's just say
They got to win the next two to even have a chance.
But even if they don't win any, would you even come back?
What's the point?
Right. I don't get it. So, and like you said, even if he comes back, he's still got to deal with that defense.
It's just like with Joe Flacco, like you said, they're averaging over 30 points a game, and they're still losing games. Unless Joe's going to play free safety, it really doesn't matter because that defense is that bad.
He could probably start at free safety for that.
We were talking earlier about how bad the O-line is. They play significantly better since Joe Flacco. It's funny how that happens since Joe Flacco's been at quarterback. But the defense, it seems like it's gotten worse since then. So it's just like Joe Burrow can't save them if they're going to be in shootouts just like they were last year. That was the issue. This is why they finished 9-8 last year, because the defense was this bad. And they were supposedly, new philosophy. We're going to bring in Al Golden. We have the young players. Well, maybe they need to start going into the scouting department because maybe they don't have the players on that roster to make significant changes for that defense to turn around. Because, again, whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Joe Shiesty, it doesn't matter because the defense has been awful.
If they lose to the Steelers
Look
and
at
the
that
Patriots and the Ravens the next 3 weeks, why does he come back?
And then the Bills and the Ravens again.
But one of those will be before Thanksgiving. That'll be after Thanksgiving, though.
That's why I said they have to win the next two just to even have a chance.
Right.
And it's the Patriots and the Ravens and the Steelers.
Yeah.
If they do beat the Steelers, they'll only be a game out.
Right.
Yeah.
If they beat the Steelers,
Then you got a shot.
then you think about, okay, he comes back. But if they lose the next 2 or 3, then they're definitely not.
And then being back, is it back where he's 80%, 70%, where he could potentially get hurt again? Like, does it make sense to do it then? Because at first they were talking about the timetable, him maybe coming back in December. Now it's Thanksgiving. That's weird how that works. Right. So my thing is, you have to protect the player from himself. I love the competitive nature of Joe Burrow, but this is the franchise. Like, this is the face of your franchise, and he already has an injury history. So to Pete's point and Haas' point, if you don't win this game, it's going to be an uphill battle for you guys to come back and make a playoff run. Why put your franchise in harm's way?
Let's move to the second to last team, the Cleveland Browns, who they invent new ways to lose every week, don't they?
I mean, they had no business losing that game last week. None. 0, except for what? Punt return and a kick return. Other than that, they win the game. I mean, special teams. It's a problem.
They gave up 13 points on defense?
Yeah, they dominated. I mean, they had 3 completions to the wide receivers, the Jets. It was terrible. Their longest play was 42 yards on a screen pass. That's it. So, look, Dylan Gabriel wasn't great last week. He hasn't been great at all. But he was okay. He was serviceable. He wasn't terrible. And here's the thing about this team. That defense is so good that it keeps them in games. Mm-hmm. And here's another thing about the Browns. Think about this. What about Kevin Stefanski to the Giants?
Makes a lot of sense.
Right?
He can develop a quarterback.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
I guarantee he wish he still had Baker on his roster.
Yeah, wait. and having talked to him, I'm pretty much, he would agree with you, I think.
Yeah.
Do you play Shedeur Sanders at some point?
I think that's the question.
But is it that bad that they don't even consider him?
I think it is. When you go back and actually watch the tape, there were so many times that Dylan Gabriel was dirting passes. And the thing is, the owner's already come out and says we need to see both rookies because they have so much draft capital. They got to figure out if they're going to be in a running for a quarterback next year. So if you continue to lose games, and yes, the defense is playing well, but the offense isn't giving you much of a burst, why not see what the other young kid has as well? Because you kind of know what Dylan Gabriel is, right? He's a guy that if the first read is open, he's going to take it. If you make him hold it and get to that second and third read, that's when you can get after him. So I would think if we have, that's most rookie quarterbacks.
Right.
But my thing is, I think in 2 more games at the most, we'll probably see Shedeur Sanders.
But that tells you, though, that something isn't right with Shedeur Sanders. The fact that they won't even consider putting him in there right now. That means that they see him in practice.
Stefanski thing?
I think they see him in practice, and maybe he's not very good in practice, or maybe there's got to be a reason why he's not playing.
So
or at least consider.
This has been the question, right? The thing is everybody under the Browns brass on the same page?
No, probably not.
So that's the question. Like, so was Stefanski truly on board with getting Shedeur? Is he maybe not putting him out there because he wasn't on board doing it? Which, again, I don't know Kevin Stefanski personally. I knew him my rookie year when he was on the Viking staff. But if you're not all the way on board and Dylan Gabriel's your guy, you're going to want to stick with your guy whether he's playing good or bad. So, like, that's the thing. You need to figure out what each one of these quarterbacks are, regardless. Just because of the draft capital you have, you're most likely going to be drafting the quarterback in the upcoming draft.
But let's be real about it. If Dylan Gabriel isn't your guy, then for the long haul, Shedeur Sanders isn't going to be your guy either. You drafted him ahead of him. You
Behind,
don't think he's
yeah.
going to step in there, and they've seen him. They know what he is. They got to find a quarterback. Let's be real. They have three. What they have? Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel.
They might be finding more than the quarterback this offseason.
Huh?
They might be finding more than the quarterback. Coach,
General
GM.
manager, the whole deal.
They traded Flacco, who's playing like one of the better quarterbacks in the league right now for Cincinnati. Browns are on CBS this week against the Ravens, 4:25 Eastern Time. That's going to be in the shadow of that Chiefs-Broncos game at 4:25 Eastern. The big one at 1 Eastern on CBS. A couple of 6-3 teams coming off disappointing losses. Bucks at Bills.